Hello and welcome to our podcast, On Your Marks. My name is Peter and I am the leader of St Mark's Church in Jersey, a growing, friendly Anglican church in the centre of St Helier. We want to take the Bible apart and see what's really in there, going beyond the face value to dig a little deeper into certain topics. We will bring you fresh content every week and hope you get a lot out of listening. So, if you're ready, let's go. Well, hello everyone. Welcome to another episode. And hi to you, Ray.
Hello. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you. We've got a period of lovely weather here in Jersey.
Cold though.
Cold but sunny.
Yes.
Do you deal well with the cold?
I don't, because I constantly feel cold nowadays. Circulation is a challenge.
Well, I'm in sandals, which you can see, no one else can see.
Oh.
I don't know, it makes me feel alive. It makes me walk a bit faster. So I look a bit ridiculous. I'm in sandals and then a big puffer jacket, but it is absolutely lovely outside. And anyway, wherever you are listening to this from, I hope you're doing well. We are sitting in Ray's study. I'm sitting with Ray as we do every week. And this week we're going to do another episode of Influential People. So this is where we go back over Ray's life and experience, and we think about people who've influenced him, either from people he maybe read about or people he's met, interactions, and that's what we're doing today. So the last episode, a fortnight ago, we were still following our chronology. We were sort of at the end of your training, talking about some of your tutors and the principle of the college. Mm-hmm. Whereas today we're going to take a bit of a break, aren't we, from the chronology?
Yes, well, just people that have been quite big in my memory banks. Because you meet all sorts of people over the decades, but some stick there because they've made such an impression on you. And that's where I think we'll start anyway, see where it takes us.
So the theme really, maybe travel, where the world has, where we've been, technology or travel has enabled us to go. And there's one story which I think we should start with, which listeners might have heard it briefly mentioned before, because maybe about 9 months ago, you told a story when we were thinking about the name Thomas. And your travel to India.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, that was quite something. Yes. We went to an area called Kerala, which is quite strongly Christian, interesting. And we had met Joseph when I was still in St Juan, I suppose. And he had been visiting London for a charismatic conference, and I'd always wanted to go and revisit him. So we arranged this, and it became quite a significant occasion.
Was he Indian heritage? Was he of Indian heritage?
He was in India.
He was Indian, yeah.
Yeah. He and interestingly, quite a lot of people were called Joseph and Mary.
Right.
He was Joseph and his wife was Mary.
Surprised by that.
No,
wow, Joseph and Mary.
It's quite common.
Gosh.
And as I say, it was a fairly strongly Christian state, Kerala. And I had fixed up with him in correspondence and made all the arrangements, and we were fixed to speak at various things, but it was quite a horrendous journey. I went on my own, so I was a bit diffident, not least because I was due to be in Dubai airport transitioning, having set off on the Thursday. By Thursday night I was in Dubai, and it was going to be over more or less overnight, waiting for about 5 hours for a plane. And I just, knowing how readily I can fall asleep, I was rather nervous, so I sort of paced about the airport and tried to keep myself alert.
Ray, I'm going to test you. What year was this? Do you know?
Oh, dear.
Sorry, I should have prepped
It
you.
will be back in the 1990s, I suppose.
1990s, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, quite a while ago.
So you're pacing about the airport,
Yes.
trying not to fall asleep and miss your plane. In
And
Dubai.
then the next flight was a link to the east coast of India, and then a flight back across to the west coast, to Kerala. Was met in Kerala by my host and his driver, and driven for 2 hours up into the mountains and lakes,
Wow.
hydroelectric area, and I was shattered by this time. Arrived and taken to my accommodation, and this was having set off Thursday morning. This was Saturday evening,
Oh, good grief.
and so I launched into my host and said, "What's the first commitment that I've got?"
And clearly he's going to give you a day or two to recuperate.
Yeah, well, you would think so. But I said, no, tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock.
Oh,
Oh, right. Well, and he hadn't been able to, or organised enough to let me know what sort of subjects he might like me to expound upon. Thankfully, I'd got a store in my heart and mind that you can dig into.
so this is preaching. He's saying
Oh, yeah.
9 o'clock, which would be Sunday morning, you're due to preach.
Yep.
Okay.
And
To who? To his church? His church.
his church.
Right.
And so we got on with it. Incidentally, I did manage to find out, and I remember on that first interview, what the likely arrangements for eating and hospitality and so on. I said, well, tell me, what do you generally have for your main meal or your first meal? Or, well, we start off with breakfast, and it's curry and rice. Oh, that's
Yeah, wow.
yeah. And do you have a meal in the middle of the day? Oh, yeah. Curry and rice.
Curry and rice again. Don't tell me dinner as well.
And dinner, what?
Curry.
Curry and rice.
Oh, good grief! And what different curry is it? Just different.
Well, it was
sweet
different-
curry,
different-
or
it was. I can't remember the details, but it was. By that time, I was sort of not being able to differentiate greatly with great expertise. I enjoyed curry, but it didn't. I was no expert at all.
I can't imagine. Although people do like curry for leftover curry for breakfast.
Yeah.
It's got a thing here. Oh dear.
Anyway, I was picked up the following morning, and we started. And I went to. I used Elijah. I remember. As
Did he tell you how long you were to preach for?
yes, he did. He said, right. How? I said, how long have I got? He said, well, the sermon for an hour. There'll be people will be disappointed if they get short shrift.
Wow.
In less than an hour.
Oh my goodness.
But that will be followed by, I think we had an hour of testimony or whatever, and then an hour of ministry.
Whoa! Wow.
So you had a 3-hour meeting,
Wow.
basically. And but it didn't stop there. I remember we also went quite a drive to visit somebody who'd been bereaved. And I'd never met this person, but I was ushered into the house where they received people visiting to console and identify with them. And I was sat down, just speaking quietly to one or two people who could speak some English, and then Joseph said to me quietly, he said, "They'll expect you to say something."
Oh no, just
Yeah,
off the cuff. Not
I thought
again.
to myself, no, surely not.
And say, what do you mean? Say what?
Well, this was the point. I didn't know.
Culturally, what's expected?
I didn't know what was expected. I had never met the deceased. It was a little bit of a challenge, but you come up with something. But he's also said, but don't. This isn't going to be long. Half an hour will do.
Half an hour will do. Oh, my goodness. Joseph's not. He wasn't a priest.
Yes, he was.
Oh, he was a priest.
Yes.
So what did he do?
He was a diocesan evangelist.
So an evangelist for
the diocese
right
of East Kerala, or in East Kerala.
So why would you speak and not him?
Because I was the guest, and I suppose I had some, for their point of view, somebody who had come from the British Isles.
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
And was there. That was of some significance to
Yes.
them, I think. And,
not long. Half an hour. Do you remember what you spoke on?
No, I can't remember that. But it was it was quite a challenge.
Wow.
It really was. But they were truly delightful people to be with, and I remember I stayed in accommodation that had been built for the engineers who looks after the hydroelectric projects in the area, big hydroelectric area, and it was special accommodation. I did spend a night in Cochin. On my return journey started at Cochin, which is down on the coast, and which Portuguese explorer in the early days of empire visited there. I can't remember now. That's gone. Vasco da Gama.
Right.
Yeah, Vasco da Gama visited there, and he had temporarily been buried in the church there where I preached. And interestingly, at a later date, with Nicola, we holidayed in that area, revisited the church where I'd preached, and it was really brought. There are places where you preach which give an emotional connection and a spiritual connection, which is substantial, and because they make a big influence on you yourself. And we went into this church on the quayside in Cochin and in the old city, and it caused me to shed a few tears. When you revisit somewhere where God has made it possible for there to be a real impact, that creates a connection that is really rather special.
How long was the first trip with Joseph?
About 10 days.
Okay.
It was not very long, but it was good.
Yeah.
It was good.
And then how long after did you come back with Nicola?
Oh, that was quite a while now. That's got to be another, 10 years or so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, the thing that you preached there once in that church.
Yes.
And so, my goodness, this is it. The you just said it.
Yeah.
The takeaway, the thing that's lasting in your memory from God enabling from one thing impact in your life, and that's now like a treasure.
Yeah.
Within your memory.
Yeah. And I think that as a general rule, treasure those memories because they're there for a purpose. And when the going gets tough or challenging or life starts to change, as it is for me, you've got these absolute gems to bring back to the fore and be richly blessed by.
Well, this is very biblical. It says Mary, after being visited by the angel, treasured these things and pondered them in her heart.
Yes.
Knowing it was a significant moment,
Yeah.
and in times of struggle, treasured them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And at the time, you don't necessarily realise you're getting on with something that you've got to do. But when you look back through that treasuring process, it's a rich blessing.
I guess the challenge, and what I would hope is, can I be in a position of awareness that I know when something is happening that will become a treasure? Because in that moment, I'm living in the present, which is not always the case. But
what we all notice that long-term memory improves as you go on.
Oh, right. Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah. And it does so with a purpose, so that as physically you become more limited in what you can do, emotionally and mentally there can well be a much sharper image. So it's greatly for Nicola's blessing that from time to time I can now tell her something that she's never heard before. Usually it's quite the reverse. Have I told you? The response usually would be yes, many times. but
once or twice, every now and again, there's something she hasn't heard. I never knew that. What a lovely thing. Long-term memory improves.
It's sad. That's why I'm very saddened by those who lose their memory.
Yeah.
Although sometimes the inexplicable happens and they hold on to good things.
Yes.
Memory's a strange thing, isn't it?
They are.
It really is.
Yeah.
But Joseph and Mary and the Currys.
Joseph and Mary and the Currys, yeah.
And, was such a blessing, and really will always be in my heart.
What's another treasure then? Where else in the world?
Where else? We did enjoy going to America from time to time.
Okay.
But more perhaps was going to the Caribbean.
Okay.
Where I would be invited to preach, and Nicola preached too, and and was taken aback by some voluble responses, and go for it, sister, and things like that.
Whereabouts in the Caribbean was it?
Well, an island called Nevis.
Okay.
With which we had a contact via a church member who had a business, and he wanted to give us a holiday, but also needed somebody to talk to some of the staff and encourage and all that sort of stuff.
Nice.
So we went there and linked up with one particular church, but there were several churches. And I remember it being brought very much to the fore when we heard on the grapevine, as you did when you're living within a community, that they managed to have a pig slaughtered and ready for purchase at the market. So we hightailed it down to the market and found the stall where they had the newly dealt with pig, and put in a bid for some bits of pork, and the lady on the stall said, "Aren't you the person who preached at the 4-Star Holiness Church yesterday?" And I said, "Oh, yes, I was." "Oh, in which case I got handed out my freebies."
Yeah.
Oh, wonderful. and have another. And you couldn't identify what the cut was.
How did you cook it?
Well, I think we roasted it.
Roasted it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Was it good? Do you remember it?
It was good. Yeah. Anything that's connected with a generous act is particularly appreciated.
Yeah. There's people I know who have spent any time in the Caribbean, particularly islands like Barbados, tell me that there's a deep sense of spirituality on the islands. And we're linked as a church with somebody in the Bahamas, a local who has had an amazing evangelistic ministry. So there's something about the islands and their spirituality.
Yeah.
The role that church plays, and God is on the people's tongue the whole time when they're talking about stuff.
And that goes right the way through society, I think.
Yeah.
We met the Prime Minister, and he was clearly a godly man.
Yeah.
And there's always the danger, of course, that it becomes the norm, and it's not necessarily a mature faith.
Yes, that's true.
But certainly we were enormously impressed with the people we met and appreciated.
For you, what is then the treasure from that?
The treasure was preaching in another culture.
Yeah.
When you get, and I found this universally, people translating for you, but translating not only your words but your action.
Oh wow!
So that I remember being in Zimbabwe, and again I was preaching at a Shona service in the Shona language. I don't speak a word of Shona, but I had a translator. So if in the process of preaching I pointed, my translator would point.
Wow!
And he was. In any other situation, it would be a bit embarrassing because it's almost as if you're being mimicked.
Mimicked, yeah.
But it's how he saw the whole thing.
Yeah.
Wow,
it's fascinating.
It was quite extraordinary. And that would be the same in the Caribbean.
And how long was your preach? And were you given notice?
I can not remember. I think it was a sort of a half hour plus.
But you were told in advance, you knew it was happening.
Oh, yeah.
It wasn't like India where you were thrust in at the deep end.
No. I knew although there was one, when Nicola preached the first time in the Caribbean, that was at relatively short notice. So she had to dig into the past, I think, a bit.
I love hearing people. So this, we've got this evangelist from the Bahamas who is linked with our church, and she's actually about to come back to the island, and she preached just before she left. But opening our eyes to other cultures, experiencing it,
absolutely,
is so valuable.
Yeah.
Particularly cultures that potentially have had influence from the West in the past, we can learn so much from today.
Absolutely.
I mean, goodness me.
Yeah.
So that's the treasure for you from the Caribbean.
Yeah.
Well, actually, from both, what we're saying is it's the cultural.
Yeah, there are influences that seem to be related around the world, really.
Yeah.
I love both of those.
Amazing. Well, that's probably what we've got time for. I'm looking forward to hearing some more, because before we pressed record, we went through some other names and some other places. So probably next time we'll do something similar: travel and other treasures.
Yeah.
A subheading of our influential people, influential places and treasures.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much for your time.
Yeah. Thank you.
See you next time.
Will do.
We do hope you enjoyed this episode. Don't forget to like and subscribe and share with your friends on social media. And please do get in touch with any suggestions or comments you may have. Thanks for listening, and see you next time.